The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
You're listening to UCW Radio. In your face.
One of the things is on the mixture of antifreeze, and I was about to say that, a lot of people don't understand if you put too much antifreeze in, a lot of people just go, I'll put more antifreeze in. Well, in very cold weather, especially in Alaska and whatnot, antifreeze will slush up. You have to have a transfer agent through there, which is the water. Mm-hmm. And that's why it was so critical to balance it out. If you have too much antifreeze, it will slush up. If you have too little, it overheats. So you had to have the perfect mixture, and that's where the 50-50 came in.
But it's like common sense, if you think about it.
Yeah, and at the time we branded it preferred coolant because I felt as though it was preferred. It was 50-50, ready to use, nice little star. It was a no-brainer, and anybody could buy it and pour it in their car. Feel confident that they did it exactly the way they needed to do it.
Well, it's interesting how you did that, and that's used all over the world, as you said, all over the world. And you go to any major store, you see this. It's kind of like with the light bulb. Everyone uses it. It was something. It was an innovation that was developed, and it became there for mass consumption, just like the 50-50 antifreeze. I find that story amazing. Now we're gonna, as we're going through this, is just one amazing chapter in your life after another, and that's why I'm glad to have you on the show. So you went from developing the 50-50 antifreeze. Now you went on to found Starbridge Systems, which is a computing technology company. Now I'm not going to go and tell the story on this. This is something you need to tell us, because I found this. I was floored when I read this. So tell us about Starbridge and what you did with them.
Well, Starbridge actually was a very interesting company. The technologies of FPGAs were out there, fill programmable gate arrays, and even to this day, they still don't really understand how they work, but they were a powerful tool chip set that Xilinx and Altera, some other people actually developed. And basically, the difference between an ASIC chip and a FPGA chip is that an ASIC chip is once you program this chip, it automatically is stuck or embedded into that. So if you're using only 10% of the chip, you're using 100% of the power, which doesn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. The FPGA, on the other hand, our chip was called the Penza chip, which meant thinking in Italian. But the Penza chip was you only used the energy that you wanted on demand at the time. So an analogy is if you needed to dig a hole, and you needed a small hole or a large hole, you would take this little spoon and you would, start digging the hole, and then you take a shovel, and then you kind of go from there until you ended up with a backhoe. Well, wouldn't it be easier if I can just take that cookie cutter and backhoe and just make it the same size that I needed each time, only at the time that I needed it? And so that was sort of the concept of that. And what we did is we paralleled those up, and we had a lot of issues going on there for layering of boards. Because at that time only 6 to 7 boards could be layered together on top of one another before you ended up with static and you couldn't see anything on your computer. So we ended up with a whole mass of problems that went on with it, but we set off and built out the world's smallest, fastest supercomputer that plugged into a normal 110, and there was a lot of defeats there that we accomplished with it that I think companies didn't accomplish it in over 10 years that we did in a matter of a couple years. I called it hyper-algorithm language. I coined the word called hypercomputing. I always felt as though that it was the next level of computing. And so the hypercomputer stepped in, and as you knew, that we did a lot of work for NASA and Cancer Institute and a whole bunch of neat projects out there that were humanitarian involved. Some of it went to weapons, which I don't know if I agree with or disagree with in this day and age, but for the most part, I think that this technology was to help mankind and move mankind forward. Also gave me a real grasp of what my next level for my next car was, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and the only way that I was going to do that was learn it 100% myself. So if someone asked me what a V is, I could tell you. If someone asked me how to put a board together, I could tell you. I can do it. So it was a real good learning curve for myself to understand what I needed to do to put it back in the cars, because I found myself in GM, Chrysler, Ford, all the car companies, like all the engineers, computers were great, but I know how to use them at a certain level, not to integrate them.
Right.
Because we typically go in for one field and we stay in that field, and that's that, you know. So the supercomputer turned out to be a pretty amazing thing, and it's again what I called hypercomputer, hyper-rhythm language, nicknamed HAL. So it was the thinking machine that was coming to life, nicknamed HAL. That's where the Penza chip came in.
Okay.